The countdown has begun to the Denver Broncos preseason. And that's why it's time for another edition of Orange and Blue Today. We are presented by Champ Honda. And wow, preseason is here. The Denver Broncos are about ready to face off against the Arizona Cardinals coming up in a matter of about 4.5 hours. We will be watching with great intent and great curiosity as to how the Denver Broncos are going to look. It is Orange and Blue Today. I am your host, Cecil Lammey. We are presented by Champ Honda and Andrew Mason on assignment in Arizona. And I told Mace yesterday, I said, light and sweet, baby. Like, you're in Arizona, you may be in a press box, you may be on traffic, you may be in a situation where you can't make the show. Don't worry about it. Because it's preseason game. I'm going to be doing a post-game show coming up after the game. As soon as the 2-minute warning hits, I'm going to jump on right here on our social channels and have post-game live. So that'll be interesting. But who's going to pop tonight for the Denver Broncos? That is the question. That's what's a topic I will be answering as today's show goes on. If Mace is able to jump in, then he's got the link and he'll be more than capable of doing that. But as always on game day, it's a little touch and go, especially when you go to a press box. And, you know, sometimes even the Broncos don't like you to broadcast from the press box, no matter how quiet you are. You know, everyone's there to work. It is a working area. And, you know, it is something where it may not always work out to jump on. So this is kind of the game day thing. If Mace is able to jump on, he will. If not, it's me riding solo for 30 minutes. And I'm certainly more than capable of offering up opinions on the Denver Broncos by myself. Russell Wilson, what do we see tonight? For Russell Wilson, there's some things that I want to see that are paramount for this team and for this quarterback. It's continued timing in this offense. We know the offensive line is going to be rough, especially no Mike McGlinchey out there. We know that it's preseason, so everything will fairly be vanilla. It's not like they're going to send exotic blitzes after him or whatever. And this is a Sean Payton offense. It's a well-known offense. It's an offense that can run like a well-oiled machine if the quarterback is running the system true to form. And that's what I want to see from Russell Wilson tonight. I want him to trust in Sean Payton and trust in those sale concepts that we all know Payton runs. It's going to be, you know, some 4 receiver looks at times, and maybe one of those is a tight end. Maybe one is a tight end, one is a running back. It doesn't have to be, if it's 4 receivers, it doesn't have to be 4 actual wide receivers. It can just be 4 targets. You're going to have 2 go deep. You're going to have 2 go short. Just read what the defense does. Go where the defense doesn't go. They go to the short guy, you go long. They go to the long guy, you go short. Everybody's covered, you run. And I want Russ to make those quick decisions. Something that we've seen at training camp described as sizzling at times at Broncos training camp. But yeah, Russell Wilson has gotten better every single day for the last 5 days. We've said Russell Wilson is better. This is Russ's best day. No, this is Russell's best day. Now this is Russ's best day. Now this is Russell's best day. Now this is Russ's best day. Well, what does he do now? Because he's built momentum through training camp. He's gotten better. The timing has gotten better within this offense. And it seems like there is a symphony coming together for Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. And you love to see it. Now, you got to show it on the field. I could say all this beautiful stuff. If you've been at camp, maybe you've seen it. If you haven't been at camp, maybe you're just listening to what Mace and I are saying, which is great. It's got to come together on the field. And talking about it and doing it in practice doesn't mean much of anything. You've got to get it done on the field. So with Russell Wilson, it's that continued momentum. He's done a good job of getting the system. He's done a good job of working within this system. Now it's time to pay it off. Now it's time to go to the air when he needs to, make those reads quickly. And one of the main things that we've seen with Russell Wilson over the last week or so, when every day has been the best day ever, one of the main things that we've seen is that Russell Wilson will run when appropriate, and he runs on time. I think that's something exceptional for his game. I think that's something that we need to watch closely and examine closely tonight. Is he going to run on time? I don't care if Russell Wilson runs. Unless it's a 7-on-7 drill, then that's a passing drill. Don't run in 7-on-7. He's obviously not going to run in 1-on-1 situations. But in this game, for the 15 snaps that he's out there for, I want Russell Wilson to read the defense quickly, take what the defense gives him, even if that's short stuff. This offense will be predicated on short stuff. It'll basically be predicated on running the hell out of the ball, kind of lulling you to sleep with some short stuff. It's Joe Lombardi, everybody. Joe Lombardi's system is dink and dunk 101. It's dink and dunk, and once in a while, some of those deep shots. The Russell Wilson factor gives you a couple of things. One, he gives you those deep shots, those moon balls that he really loves to go to. Don't go to him all the time. Don't wait for him. Take what the defense gives you. Make it quick. Quick for Russell Wilson. Quick decisions, footwork, hitches proper where he needs to go with the football. That's what I want to see. But what's made him better than the beginning of camp? The beginning of camp, Russell Wilson was doing this. Hold. Seeing a target, throwing it across his body without moving and hitching his feet. That's wrong-headed of one Russell Wilson. He needs to be on the right page today with that timing like he has been over the last 5 days. I want him to drop back, 1, 2, run. High, low, run. Maybe there's a third read, maybe not. High, low, dump off, right? It depends on the target structure. It depends on which side of the field he's going to, because if it's sail concepts, you always assume 5 skilled positions. If no one's staying into the block, then he's got an outlet receiver on one of the sides. Let's say they're in the shotgun, running back kind of swings out. So like high, low, dump, run. But make it quick, because early in practice, when, and he's been getting used to the Sean Payton system, we should have known it would have been like this. If Mace was here, he would have been singing Should Have Known Better, I believe, by Richard Marx. But either way, we should have expected this. And I think there's such a microscope on Russell Wilson, and there's such this intensity around this season. And does he get it or does he not get it? That's what we need to see. And it starts in the preseason. Now, if he struggles in the preseason, it doesn't mean disaster and Russ sucks or whatever. We need to be measured in everything that we do, in football and in life. Don't catastrophize. Don't think everything's the worst thing ever or it's the best thing ever. If he goes out there and balls out, okay, it's preseason. Weigh it with a grain of salt. Sometimes a block of salt. But just know, if he tears it up, that's great. Still preseason. If he struggles, not great. Things to work on. Still preseason. You've got time to do that. But based on the momentum we've seen from Russell Wilson, we should be expecting a good night from Russ. And if you really want a scoreboard watch, I don't know if anybody out there wants to do that, right? If you want a scoreboard watch, well, you can see what Drew Lock did for Seattle. So you can keep track of that. Now, I know he's their backup, whatever. But for example, and Russell won't be out there as much as Locke was. Locke was 17 to 24, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. The interception was tipped. Every interception has a story. So he's not going to be out there as much as Drew, but similar completion numbers. You want this system. That's basically what we're watching. We're watching Russell Wilson, but we're mainly watching the system. Is the system being run the way it's supposed to? Because if it is, guys are open and you can move the ball. If Russell Wilson is not, if he reverts because the things are live, I always hesitate to use war references with football because they're much, much different. But if the bullets are live, Russ needs to make those decisions quickly. Don't revert to bad habits that he got under Nathaniel Hackett and get rid of the ball quickly. If he can do that on time, I'll be watching that closely. And then I'll be watching for who his favorite target is. Who should pop on the field tonight for the Denver Broncos? Who needs to pop? Guys like Montre Washington, guys like Justin Sternad. These are players, Damari Mathis has had some struggles with Jerry Jeudy. I think he's fallen down, and Jeudy is a great route runner, but Damari has literally fallen on the field. The one time was the big touchdown where he literally fell in front of Jerry Jeudy, and Jeudy had to sidestep, jump over him so he could continue the route for the big touchdown. These are things, but who's going to, and then who needs to? Those are two different stories. Two different narratives tonight that I'll be watching. So will Russell Wilson get it? And if he does get it, then who's he throwing to? Who does he like? Who's getting open? Now, we know with Sean Payton's system, somebody's open all the time. There will be instances where Russ doesn't see him And yes, that is a factor with Russell Wilson. I know a lot of fans, and part of me is like, okay, you're a Broncos fan, but you hate Russell Wilson? Like, you're a Broncos fan and maybe doubt Russell Wilson, Broncos fan and not really be down with Russell Wilson, Broncos fan and maybe want Caleb Williams. Like, I get all these things, but there's some people, I'm a Broncos fan, but I hate Russell Wilson. I'm like, it doesn't really make sense, but I digress. But if you're one of those people, like, watch Russell Wilson to see if he's on time and see who he's going to. And sometimes, yes, he doesn't see receivers that are open because he's too short. And are we not over that short quarterback thing? Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick, Drew Brees, Kyler Murray, number 1 overall pick. Like, we should be past that. Murray, of course, is not going to play tonight. He may not play at the beginning of the season. That has not yet been revealed for Arizona. But this isn't a Cardinals show. This is a Broncos show. And we're talking about Russell Wilson. You can get good football from Russell Wilson. I think there were some in the media, even some on our station, that were going a little bit overboard in terms of he's not the same anymore. Yeah. Saying Russell Wilson is not the same is like saying water is wet. Like, yes, players age, things change, but can this version of Russell Wilson, the early vintage Russ from Seattle, you see some flashes sometimes, but that's never coming back. That's not who he is. That's not who he can be. He'll get hurt if he is. He'll get hurt if he tries. That's why I've said Jarrett Stidham is probably going to play a couple games this year, and hopefully those are wins for the Denver Broncos. But when Russell Wilson is out there, I want to see if he's running the offense, which he should be based on the momentum he's built, and then who's his favorite target, because somebody's always open. And it should be Jerry Jeudy, but Cortland Sutton's been amazing. It's an Archer quote. Look it up. And I wouldn't mind. You start out with a couple Samaje Perine runs. Maybe you go for an Adam Troutman on 3rd and 3. You go Adam Troutman on a cross route, a little drag route, something like that. Like, move the pocket, get Russ on the move. Maybe Russ runs for a first down, something like this. So you run the ball and you run the ball and it's a short pass and you run the ball and you run the ball and it's a short pass and you keep the chains moving and all of a sudden it's not a run. Put that ball out, pull it back in, set up, fire deep to Cortland Sutton. I don't want to be greedy, but I would love to see that. I would absolutely love to see a deep shot that is set up for one Cortland Sutton. In fact, if that happens, I will be giving it the ever popular Keanu kiss right here on this show. Orange Blue Today, we're presented by Sean Honda. The Keanu kiss, the highest compliment that you can pay on this show. I want to see a deep shot, and I want to see it connect, especially with Court out there looking so explosive. And everyone stay healthy. I said it last night on Denver Sports Tonight. Honestly, I should have started this show with that take. If the field's poor, don't play. We saw it in the preseason. It was, I think it was Eagles and Washington, something like that. And there was a game at Washington Stadium, whatever the hell it's called. And the turf was awful because Dan Snyder's an awful person and an awful owner and all these sorts of things. And the field was terrible and they just didn't play. They said, we're not playing. So if that's the case tonight, it's the line's too thin for the Denver Broncos to lose anybody. And I'm not even going to say their names because I don't bring that witchcraft on me, Ricky Bobby. Like, I don't want to bring that bad juju onto the Broncos and even say those names, but there are certain players. There's probably about 3 or 4. You cannot lose them. Other players you can get by, and there's some depth here, but there's 3 or 4 players on this team that you absolutely cannot lose because they're cornerstone players. Again, hopefully everybody stays healthy, and hopefully if the turf's bad, it's not about the length of your cleat. It's about, like, is the turf bad? Call it. Call it. It doesn't matter. It's a preseason game. It doesn't count, but it does matter. But if you don't play it, it doesn't matter. Just go get more work in. Go practice. Do a joint practice here. Like, invite Arizona to Centura Health Training Center. Russell Wilson, what's he going to do? Jarrett Stidham and Ben DiNucci coming in afterwards. Ben DiNucci has been the better quarterback than Jarrett Stidham. He's not going to be the backup. It's funny that that's the case, and I said it with D-Mac last night, is that you have a meritocracy, right? Jaleel McLaughlin could make this team on the 53. He could be a player that pops. I expect him to pop tonight. He kind of needs to. He's last on the depth chart, but not if you've been watching practice. That's where the depth chart games begin. But that kid is so special. Like, it doesn't matter he was undrafted. The Pierre Thomas story, when they drafted Antonio Pittman and they got Pierre Thomas undrafted, Pierre Thomas outplayed him. Pittman played for a year. Thomas was a Pro Bowler. You know, that was under Sean Payton. So it's funny that under Sean Payton, the guy that just says, can you play or can you not play? Jarrett Stidham kind of gets a pass because he got the money. So we'll see. But in practice, Stidham has been getting better. It's nothing more than backup level, though. So I don't want anyone. And D-Max certainly, he didn't go after me, but he did mention when I was on with him, he's like, I heard you talking about me and saying about Jarrett Stidham. I'm like, yeah, because we can't say Jarrett Stidham's anything more than a backup because he's not. It's unfair to the fan base. It's misinformation. How about that? So, Jarrett Stidham, he's going to be better than Ben DiNucci. And we'll watch that battle. And would you keep DiNucci if he plays well? Sure. The third quarterback rule now, DiNucci can sling it. He's a little wild. Stidham's a little bit more robotic, and you don't really know where the ball's going with Jarrett Stidham. The running back position, Javonte is not going to play. I don't know if that's out yet. He didn't think he was going to play last week, and we'll see. But it's Samaje Perine. It's Beatty. It should be Batty. If it was 2 Ds instead of 1, his name would be Batty, and that'd be a really cool last name. But Tyler Beatty will be there. Jaleel McLaughlin will be there. Tony Jones is there as well. Tony's the all-purpose guy, Notre Dame kid. Saw him at the Shrine game years ago when it was in Tampa. So he's an all-purpose guy. He's actually lost a little bit of weight, a little bit quicker, but still not overly quick, not overly fast. Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type of guy. Jaleel McLaughlin has that insane speed. Beatty's ahead of him, though. And I believe McLaughlin is a better receiver because he is a receiver. Jaleel McLaughlin could play slot receiver if you wanted him to. He can run routes. That's how good he is. He has great hands. Beatty has good hands, not great. And he also is not a receiver type. He's more of a outlet, swing pass, screen pass, that type of guy. That's the difference. McLaughlin can run routes and has great hands. Beatty's got good hands and is more of a swing route, that type of guy. Maybe a Texas route, although I would way trust Jaleel McLaughlin more on a Texas route where it's all about deceiving that linebacker. I'm cutting this way and then cut the opposite way. I would trust Jaleel McLaughlin on that more. Beatty can do it. I think McLaughlin's better. So we'll watch that competition. Wide receiver competition. Sutton Judy I've talked about. And, of course, Marvin Mims Jr., he's got to stay healthy, but he has a leg up in the competition for the number 3 receiver. If he wins the number 3 receiver because Brandon Johnson is hurt, then you have to wonder, does that help Montrell Washington make the team? Because now your third receiver is not necessarily going to be your number 1 punt returner. And your number 1 punt returner right now is Marvin Mims. It's not Montrell Washington. So we'll see how those games are played between those 2 players. Mims, you can do something with on offense. Washington, you can't really, although they might have a package of plays. You can always say with small guys, I'm not revealing what they've done at practice, but hey, it's a small receiver that's really fast. Let's run a jet sweep. That kind of makes sense, right? That's kind of football 101. So Washington, you could have a package of plays for, but he's not. If Mims had been healthy this entire offseason, I could make the argument that Marvin Mims is your best receiver. He's that good. And he's been getting better in training camp, real rough to begin training camp and coming back from injury, so he wasn't doing much. Now that he's doing more, you see that special talent there as that speed wide receiver. I think at the end of the day, he's Emmanuel Sanders. But Sanders, Egon remember, didn't have a 100-yard game for Pittsburgh in 4 years. Didn't have a single 100-yard game. I think his highest was like 97 yards. But what a tremendous value when the Broncos got him. And E stayed healthy, and E blew it up. Love Emmanuel Sanders. Marvin Mims is Emmanuel Sanders. That's who he is. Got a little more dog. Sanders had plenty of dog to his game, so I want to see that from Mims. Haven't seen it yet. Maybe that's something you get a glimpse of tonight. So a guy like Washington, a guy like Jalen Virgil, my man Taylor Grimes, who I've said could have 3 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Let's make it 3 catches, 70 yards and a touchdown. Am I trying to be safe with that? Either way, he's at the end of the depth chart. He shouldn't be. If you've watched camp every day, I understand not everyone can get out there every day. Maybe it's only one day. Maybe it's a couple of days. But Taylor Grimes should not be last on the depth chart. The Broncos are playing a game. They're trying to sneak him through to the practice squad. That's what they're doing. And it's also a message, just like Jaleel McLaughlin. Hey, man, you're an undrafted rookie. You got to prove it. Practice is great. That don't impress me much, Shania. So, like, yeah, Taylor Grimes, got to do it in the game. Let's go do it. Like, you got to do it in the game. We'll see Grimes do that. Certainly could. DiNucci, I can imagine a DiNucci play, Grimes after the catch. I could see that turning into a big play to the tight end position. Greg Dulcich's got to make plays. The pads are on, and we know Adam Troutman is going to be steady. Adam Troutman could be more. Don't look at Adam Troutman's numbers from his seasons with the Saints and think, oh, I know who that guy is. Nope. We don't. And not just because players can change and players can grow and players can improve, but I go back to what Adam Troutman was at Dayton, where he was a touchdown hog. 14 touchdowns in a season. One season. I go back to the Senior Bowl, where he was a receiving weapon. He's a receiver. He has fallen into the Mercedes Lewis, Daniel Graham, even O.J. Howard had a little bit of this. Sometimes a tight end comes to the league as a great receiver. Daniel Graham was a great receiver. Mercedes Lewis was a great receiver. O.J. Howard was a great receiver. You know what happened when they turned pro? They became such good blockers that the team kept him as a blocker instead of using him as that Jimmy Graham like a weapon. He's the joker. Well, yeah, Adam Troutman's a joker too. So Greg Dulcich, pads are on. You better block. And he could easily hook up with Stidham or DiNucci. A lot of his big plays are from DiNucci. People go excited. Hey, there's Greg Dulcich on the third team. So, yeah, Dulcich, you should be able to beat up on those third string guys. They're going to be selling insurance, in a month, whatever. Like, he should be able to do that. He's a really talented receiver, but if he doesn't block, it doesn't really matter because it's obviously, when he's on the field, you know what's going to happen. So Dulcich needs to flash, and he will flash as a receiver. I guarantee it. But if he's not blocking, if someone gets by him, let's say DiNucci gets a blindside sack or something, gets blown up and fumble or whatever, and it's on Greg Dulcich, that is not going to look good for that young man. So I think fantasy Twitter's funny because they were like, I can't believe it. He's not number one. Like, Troutman is number one because he can do everything. And Troutman, in my opinion, and I'm not projecting this, I'm not projecting Troutman to make this great leap, but it's there. It could be there, especially coming from a small school. As we've said on this show, Dayton is a non-scholarship FCS school. So it's damn near Division III. So to come from that to the NFL, and remember Peyton moved up like 30 picks to get him, and then he traded for him here. So obviously Sean Payton likes him. We'll continue to see that. Offensive line's in trouble. I don't want to scare everybody, but the offensive line is in serious trouble. So, who's going to pop from that? I hope somebody does. And I hope it's not a problem for Russell Wilson. Your backup quarterback, you're going to be dealing with reserve linemen anyway. I want to see more from a guy like Isaiah Prince, who is the next man up behind Mike McGlinchey. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if he played half the game. Wouldn't mind if he played the whole game. And then, you got Cam Fleming, who I like more as a right than as I do as a left. We'll see how that continues with Cam Fleming there. And then some of those younger guys, you're going to see if they can continue to make that transition. The center, you've got a couple of young centers. Wattenberg's had some moments messing with Tyler Lancaster, stuff like that. Defensive line, again, everybody stay healthy. Your backups, there's a bit of a battle. I want to see how that shakes out, although it seems like the defensive line is settled. Nick Benito should be a problem tonight. That's for sure. And then Marcus Haynes. We haven't really talked about Marcus Haynes a whole bunch. You need to know the name. You need to know the game. Because if we look at pass rushers, undrafted this year, I thought Thomas Incoom would do much more. And if we're talking one-on-one drills, like in the pit at training camp, Thomas Incoom shows flashes. Then they go to teams and he disappears. And I'm not talking about teams like first team. I'm talking about third team. He disappears. That's not good. And so whereas I suggested Thomas Incoom and Jaleel McLaughlin could be the two undrafted free agents, Art Green would be in there as well. So maybe even three undrafted free agents to make the 53. Now it's looking more like Marcus Haynes. Now it's looking more like Taylor Grimes. Now it's looking like Jaleel McLaughlin still could, although as I said, he's buried on the depth chart right now. You got to make plays to make up for that. So Marcus Haynes, keep that name in the back of your mind, because that's a young pass rusher that's getting it. Christopher Allen's not having a good camp at all. So that's a disappointment, to be sure. But the pass rushers, Nick Benito will be a problem. Jonathan Cooper will show up big like he always does in practice. He's been the most consistent player every single day. Secondary full of playmakers. You want to see what a Jaquan McMillan does. He does not lose confidence, but he also allows big plays. He doesn't lose confidence through it. He gets super mad, which is fine. And I thought Jaquan would push for the starting job, push Damari Mathis. And as I said, Mathis has like stumbled a bit in practice. Jaquan has not taken that next step. He's grabby, and he's definitely chatty. He's chatty and grabby, but that's not always a good thing because there's going to be some PI. If it's a pass interference tonight, Jaquan McMillan's probably going to be that guy. That's what he does. So he's a little grabby. He's feisty, gets in the back pocket of receivers, doesn't back down from a challenge. I love that about him. But at the same time, you can't be drawing those penalties like that. And he gets burned. Mims has burned him. Judy's burned him. I don't know if Sutton's necessarily been on him. Usually it's Sutton versus Surtain, which is fun. So Jaquan McMillan makes some plays tonight. Kind of settled the coaches down a little bit because I'm sure they're pretty nervous about your play because his play in training camp is so wild. Like he will knock passes away, and then you got to go, but was it PI or was it not? Because again, he's grabby. He's very physical from that corner spot. Safety-wise, Jale Skinner, who's not a lock for the 53. You keep him on a practice squad. I like Jale Skinner. And this is where he can stand out. Most of what Skinner does is something that you can't really replicate in practice because there's no hitting. And Skinner isn't necessarily a headhunter because when I think of headhunting safeties, I think of John Lynch and Brian Dawkins and Steve Atwater and Dennis Smith. Like the rich safety history here has been incredible. So I'm not going to say that for Skinner, but he is more physical. He is kind of a chess piece. I don't really consider him a safety because he's kind of like a linebacker safety hybrid thing, but he's a playmaker. Now's the time to make plays because if we were making the 53 today, based off of just training camp practice, Skinner doesn't make the team. He makes the practice squad, but he doesn't make the 53. You make a play or two in preseason, you're going to make the team. So we'll continue to watch that. Great upside with this young man. You got to figure out how to use him. I feel Vance Joseph will be very versatile in the way that he uses Jale Skinner. And then, of course, special teams, people who are watching the kicker battle, watch the return man. If you're Montreal Washington, don't muff a punt, the kickoff, anything like he has been in practice at times. There's been the frustrating thing about Montreal Washington is no matter what I say, people be like, you hate him. Like, no, I'm just going to tell you what's happening. And out of the 12 days or whatever, 14 days of training camp, 12 days of Christmas, I don't know. Half of them been good, half of them been bad, and sometimes terrible. So you be the judge. You want to keep Montreal Washington? Again, analysis is not being a fan. Be like, go Broncos. He's the greatest. Russ wanted him. Like, that doesn't matter. You got to get it done on the field. We'll see if Montreal can do that tonight. So, looks like Mace was a little indisposed at Arizona down there. He will be jumping on the Fan, I think, and also on Denver Sports Tonight. We're doing a 2-hour pregame. Make sure to stay tuned for that. That's coming up at 6 p.m. 2-hour pregame kickoff at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. It is Denver Broncos. It is Arizona Cardinals. And after the game, I will be back on this channel. And I will be talking about the Denver Broncos and how they did against the Arizona Cardinals. You want to stay tuned for that. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And if you're commenting in the chat room, I can't really look at the chat when I'm flying solo, but I appreciate you guys. Make a comment down below as well. Really helps that YouTube algorithm, gets us in front of more people as we spread the love for Orange and Blue today. We're presented by Sean Honda. I'm Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching, everybody. Be safe, be kind, know that you're appreciated. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.